As much as people like to attribute like censorious or anti-free speech politics to me, I do not believe in hate speech laws, and I do not believe in arresting people for the stuff they believe. I am fully okay with disallowal from running for office and disallowal from participating in public discourse if you're using it to spread hatred and to threaten violence against other people. To me, that's a fair line. We have to understand we're playing for the highest stakes here. Once the Nazis take power, that's it. Guys, did you know that free speech is really cool? I did, because I agree. The problem is that nobody seems to understand what free speech means. Is it anti-free speech when you call a person dumb? No, probably not. Is it anti-free speech if you show up in a restaurant with your shirt off and you piss on a table and they tell you to leave? I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe. Here's somebody who knows how free speech works, okay? Get ready for it. I may not agree with what ye said yesterday, but he has the right to say it. That's how free speech works. Finally, somebody's willing to cut through the crap and tell us how free speech works. Thank you, Kevin Sorbo. That's awesome. Now I know. Now that I know what free speech is, I have some questions and concerns a little bit about the way that free speech as a concept is constantly invoked. You know, they often say that like the right is more preoccupied with free speech than the left is, that the left is censorious. This isn't backed up by any data as far as I can tell. Right-wing governments are far more censorious broadly than left-wing governments are. If you take a look at the allies of Trump around the world, they tend to be very much so. Trump himself immediately tried to use his power as a president to like shut down the media, which seems a little bit bad, maybe a little bit. But I was also curious about the exact way in which this was being invoked, because it hasn't escaped my attention that every single time free speech is brought out as a defense by the right wing, it's to defend horrible people. I remember there was like a CGP Grey comic from years and years and years ago where if the only defense that you have of your argument is that it's not technically illegal to express it, you probably have a really bad argument. Oh, XKCD. Sorry, not CGP Grey. I associate them because they have similar art styles. XKCD, that's right. And I think that's actually a really good point. Like, don't get me wrong, we do all have free speech. Under the First Amendment, we are protected from government persecution based on our politically protected speech, or any other kind of speech, really. There are exceptions, obviously. Death threats can be illegal. Harassment can be illegal. Defamation and libel can open you up to civil liability, not criminal, but civil. But that's still enabled by, legal code, which means that it fits within a exception to our free speech. This stuff is complicated, you know? I've often brought up before, like one of the good examples of like the complexity when it comes to free speech is, what if you could go back in time and kill Hitler? Mind you, if you go back in time and kill Hitler, this isn't just a violation of Hitler's free speech in like an abstract philosophical sense. You're also, killing a guy. But I think it speaks towards kind of a broader concern, which is what would you do if you had the ability to violate somebody's rights, but prevent unimaginable suffering in the future? And that's an interesting question. There's not really like an objective answer to this, because obviously we can't actually see the future, so we don't know for a fact how things will turn out. The more socially applicable version of this argument, this debate is, if you restrict the speech of people who, if their speech is not restricted, will go on to control government and then institute an authoritarian dictatorship where there will be no free speech, is it pro or anti-free speech to lock them down beforehand? I've always taken the side, and this is called the tolerance, or the paradox of tolerance. I've always taken the side that actions taken to protect free speech as an institution are themselves pro-free speech. Meaning that if you could say, for example, prevent fascist candidates from running for office or lock people up on sedition charges if they attempt to initiate a coup, you would actually be doing this in a pro-free speech sense, because if those people ever got power, they would remove free speech. We're not talking about the abstract of like running down to everyone's homes and like arresting them for the stuff they say. We're talking about denying them the political power they would use to destroy free speech as a concept. Free speech absolutism is self defeating if it does defeat itself, which it seems to. It's kind of the same how, like, if you want to promote a society where it's easy for people to drive, you need to set rules for driving, right? Like, the only reason people drive all the time over here in America is because we have roads, stop signs, traffic lights. If you had a system where there was no, where there were no rules in place at all for any kind of like driving limitations, none whatsoever, then you would disincentivize driving a little bit. Um, it's better for the ability to drive that there were rules on driving. Now, in terms of like what limitations on free speech are good, is it good that you can be arrested for screaming fire or bomb in an airport or whatever? That's really complicated. But I want to scale it back a little bit because there's one other concern that I want to bring up, kind of like as a framework. Why do right-wingers only remind us that free speech exists when they're defending people they claim not to agree with on the right? I may not agree with what ye said yesterday, but free speech exists. Well, thank you for your contribution to the discourse. Nobody was ever questioning whether or not he had a legal right to say that stuff. Why this? See, I've consumed conservative content for a long time. I don't think I've ever seen Kevin Sorbo, or in fact any conservative that I can think of, saying, you may not agree with what Ilhan Omar said the other day, but she does have the right to say it. That's how free speech works. Have you ever heard that? I may not agree with what Biden said the other day in his speech, his Dark Brandon speech, but he does have the right to say it. That's how free speech works. You ever heard that? No, I haven't either. I may not agree with what AOC said the other day, but so why for ye? Why do they say this so much for Alex Jones? Or Nick Fuentes? They said it for Richard Spencer. What about Milo Yiannopoulos? It's because they're defending it. Remember what I said before? Invoking free speech is a defense. We're not talking about an actual legal argument. Kevin Sorbo's not in a courtroom reminding people of an actual explicit legal right. He's defending it in the only way he can, by using the free speech argument. But it is a defense, a choice taken to positively frame that content, that delusional bipolar meltdown of ye's. They don't say it about other people because they aren't interested in defending other people. They're interested in defending Nazis. And so they will invoke the defenses they're capable of for Nazis without flagrantly tripping the I am pro-Nazi line. Yeah, here's thank you for linking this. I think this is fantastic. This is a candidate running against Ilhan Omar, right? Yeah, here we go. Shukri Abdirahman. Shoe for Congress over here. Not that shoe, the other one. Great person, except that actually they're terrible in every way. Here's a tweet. We can no longer get rid of tyranny by the ballots. It's only by bullets now. This is in response to a Twitter file thread in which Matt Taibbi says there was no government interference in Twitter's censorship of the Hunter Biden story, and the only thing that the Joe Biden private DNC campaign group did was ask that they remove revenge porn of Hunter Biden. In return to the in response to the information that Joe Biden's administration, not administration, wasn't the president yet. In response to the information that Joe Biden's team requested that leaked illegal nudes of his son be taken down, an okay request as requests go, her response is, we can no longer get rid of tyranny by the ballots. It's only by bullets now. Is this a pro or anti-free speech take? See, technically, her ability to say that is an expression of her free speech. But what she's really saying is, if you kind of read between the lines, or in fact, read the lines at all, or you could read the tweet, What she's really saying is, we need to kill our political opponents. Why do we need to kill our political opponents? Well, on its own, you could say, well, killing Hitler would have been killing a political opponent. Sure. Well, they want to kill the Democrats because Joe Biden's team didn't want Hunter Biden's leaked nude, which is revenge porn on Twitter. Yeah, that time to kill our opponents. My personal opinion is that a world where people can't run for government while openly promoting the murder of their liberal political opponents for no reason at all is actually a freer world than one where they are able to. It's kind of the warlords thing, right? If you give freedoms out willy-nilly to the point where you essentially have no government involvement in anything at all, you just get like ANCAP feudalism land. You just get Mad Max world. Obviously we scale it back a bit. Okay, well actually you can't pee on other people. That's bad. You shouldn't do that. Don't murder, don't rape. You scale it back and eventually you have something approximating a functioning society. We don't know exactly where the line is. We don't know where it should be, but we know that a line somewhere is probably good for everyone. And in my opinion, part of a good line is one where there are social consequences to saying this. Is one where there are social consequences to saying what ye said. Is one where we recognize that implicit defenses of Nazi breakdowns are implicit defenses of Nazi breakdowns. That this isn't a statement that he would say about anyone else, even though it is empirically as true with Yi as it is with literally any person he's ever slandered in his entire career as being a retard online. Y'all get me, don't you? I'm going to keep hammering on this. People say I have censorious opinions on free speech. No, I don't. Keeping Nazis from running the government actually is a very pro-free speech position. Your defenses of free speech are not valid if they lead to a scenario in which all free speech is abolished. And likewise, these people don't give a shit about free speech. Like, at all. Not even remotely. They cheered when Donald Trump smeared the media and tried to open up libel and slander laws so that he could, with his administration and government power, sue them for reporting accurately on the stuff that he did. That's where they're at. They don't care about free speech. She certainly doesn't care about free speech. Very free, very speech. You all get me. Is there any good argument for disallowing them from being a Nazi, as in locking them up just for espousing Nazi beliefs? No, I don't believe that. As much as people like to attribute like censorious or anti-free speech politics to me, I do not believe in hate speech laws, and I do not believe in arresting people for the stuff they believe. I am fully okay with disallowal from running for office and disallowal from participating in public discourse if you're using it to spread hatred and to threaten violence against other people. I'm fully okay with that. I think that's acceptable. To me, that's a fair line. We have to understand we're playing for the highest stakes here, Once the Nazis take power, that's it, Wait, no hate speech laws for real? Yeah, for real. We already have laws for incitement to violence. We already have laws for death threats and what have you. I haven't seen any evidence to indicate that hate speech laws like meaningfully reduce bigotry in a society. So I'm not in favor of them. And also, I'm just uncomfortable with the government getting to arrest you for this stuff. I'm talking about you not being able to run while being openly anti-democracy, openly fascistic, and it's okay if Twitter bans you for it. That's fine. I'm okay with it. A-okay. What about locking someone up if they don't like Outer Wilds? Well, obviously, I am okay with locking people up if they disagree with me. What about hate crimes in general? A hate crime is just a term for an existing crime that is modified by the charge that it was motivated by hatred or by like racial or demographic bias. So a hate crime isn't like its own type of crime. It's a crime that already exists that you're doing as a product of that kind of demographic bias. I'm okay with that. The point of arresting and imprisoning people or whatever in an ideal system is rehabilitation. And I think people who kill or who rape or who harass or who deface or whatever as a product of racial hatred or whatever are further from being rehabilitated than people who do it for other reasons. Generally speaking, I think that people who act on who commit hate crimes are acting on like a higher and worse level of social maladjustment. So in that respect, I'm okay. Do you think it's possible to legislate against stochastic violence? It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. Isn't forcing Nazis to go underground deplatforming? I love deplatforming. Sure, yeah. Yeah. Uh, at no point in human history have we ever had a platform that people just got to keep no matter what. Like, any ability you had to speak to the public at any point in time was motivated by your ability to navigate the rules set for you within that platform. The concept of like a completely hands-off, context-free ability to broadcast your info to millions, not a thing that's existed historically and not one that exists today. And it sure as shit is not going to exist if they take power, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, no, I don't care. And keep in mind, terms of service when it comes to like Twitter and what have you have nothing to do with the First Amendment. The Constitution guarantees you protection from government persecution, not from website TOSs.